Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Arthur A. Edwards. Now, a lot of you may remember Art when he was on our network previously. Well, we had such a great time talking with him. We had such great feedback. Well, it was a no-brainer. We had to invite him back here with us. Now, this time, we're discussing his book, The War We Almost Lost, how we came close to losing World War II. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. Pretty much all the regular online book resellers. Head on over there, pick up copies of this book, but also check out the 3 other ones that he's written as well. The other one is called The Journey to Hangtown Haven. Then we have A Hero's Life, followed by War is Hell. All 4 of his books, again, available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or all the regular online book resellers. And before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Art was brought to our network by one of the best advertising firms in the business, and people you already know. I'm talking, of course, about Author Reputation Press. So for my writers out there who have written their masterpiece and now you need help moving the book you developed, contact ARP. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in, people. So head on over to authorreputationpress.com today. Their team is standing by waiting to assist you, and they're going to take your creative endeavors to the next level. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Art back here on the line with us. His book, The War We Almost Lost, is gripping. You're going to step back in time and uncover this narrative of World War II like never before. It's an informative analysis of a major time in history that very well could have shifted our country as well as our lives in a much, much different direction. Who better to articulate this than Art himself? He's written the book. He was there to experience it firsthand. And he's going to be able to articulate it all much better than I ever could. Sit back and strap in. Art, first and foremost, welcome back to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise. Art, the pleasure is all ours, man. We really do mean that. First and foremost, your book that we discussed last time, The Journey to Hangtown Haven, was incredibly impressive about what you and your community members had done to really battle homelessness in your area, but do it in such a caring and empathetic way. I thought was brilliant. This book, The War We Almost Lost, my goodness, man, it's right up there. This is something that, as I mentioned in the intro, is riveting, and we are thoroughly looking forward to this discussion. Before we go into the words on those pages, though, Art, for our listening audience members that have missed previous times you were with us, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, born and raised in Oakland, California. Went to school at Cal Berkeley, majored in mechanical engineering, with a minor in naval science. I was a commissioned naval officer during the Korean War. Grew up, I worked as an aerospace engineer. And as I was growing up, of course, in the 30s, I was pretty small, but I was paying a lot of attention to the Depression and what was going on around us. And in the 40s, I was a teenager. My dad was a naval officer during World War II. I read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people who were in the war, which is what got me off onto writing this book, because most of the guys that came back from the war said we weren't being told the truth about the battles and what was going on in the Pacific. And I heard a lot of stories directly from people who were involved in these battles. And I later on in life decided it was time that somebody needed to write a book that straightened out things and told the story of how close we came to, not getting it together at the right time and maybe even losing it to Japan and Germany.
Yeah. Let's jump right in. Art, I'm biting at the bit. I know my listening audience is as well. We know what the book entails. You went in briefly as to the inspiration behind the precipice that sets you off on this journey. Well, can you share a brief overview of the key factors or events highlighted in your book that contributed to this near loss of World War II?
The first thing that strikes me is how similar events are today to what they were in the 30s. For example, we're facing with the America First organization of people in America during the 30s and early 40s who supported Hitler. I couldn't believe it when I talked to a number of them, and were against the United States going to war to help out England. And it sounds very much, what shocked me is it sounds very much like what's happening today with Russia over in that area. In other words, history does tend to repeat itself. So I thought one of the good reasons to write this book was to bring out that point. Anyway, go into the anti-war operations of the America First organization with Charles Lindbergh and Father Conklin, both of whom who were supporting Hitler with millions of followers in our country, which I didn't realize at the time, but do now as I look back on it. And then go into Japan's attack starting in Pearl Harbor, their big mistake attacking us, which put to bed the America First and brought out the fighters in us. And we responded bravely. But the first year of the war was touch and go mainly because we were not prepared.
Yeah.
But the enemy just made some huge mistakes, which I'll tell you a few if you're interested. But my book goes into them in detail and how it could have been much, much worse.
Yeah. I'm curious, obviously you are a wealth of knowledge. Art, you've experienced a lot of this firsthand, but you've also conducted plenty of research. Did you uncover any lesser known aspects of World War II that played a significant role in this near loss? And how did you ensure that these details were accurately represented in your book, Art?
Well, I did my best. Let's say, a lot of them I learned as learning to be a naval officer. After the war was over, of course, people were much more willing to share the truth, and naval officers that were training us that were actually in these battles, I had no reason to disbelieve them. They were trying to teach us, what not to do if we ever got into command decision positions in the military as we, matured through the ranks. So I got a very good background that I had no reason to disbelieve, because it also those things duplicated some of the talks I'd had with sailors and soldiers coming back from the war that were trying to tell me that things weren't as they seemed, but I decided it needed to be put together in a book that people could read and use as kind of a starting point to search out and confirm the things I said, because that's always the best thing to do, is not to believe everything you read, but to follow up and secure confirmation of events.
Absolutely.
The way politics was in those days, which was the cause of most of our problems, actually.
And people, I'm telling you, you gotta head on over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. This book is gripping, and I'm already at the edge of my seat. I know so many of you are as well. It's called The War We Almost Lost: How We Came Close to Losing World War II by Arthur A. Edwards. While you're at it, there are 3 other books you're going to want to pick up as well. One is called The Journey to Hangtown Haven. Next, A Hero's Life, followed by War is Hell. You know, Art, follow-up question that I want to go into. What parallels, if any, do you see between the events leading to the potential loss of World War II and present-day global challenges or conflicts?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and it's one thing that's really got me going. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned the name of the organization, America First, was very active in those days, as it is today, and it was saying, we should ignore Hitler and we should ignore his and the Japanese movement in Asia because it had no effect on America. And that's, of course, exactly what we're hearing now with the people in what Russia's doing in Europe, like it doesn't affect us. Why are we worried about it?
Yeah.
And, of course, we found out very rapidly in World War II that it had a great effect on us. And if we could have ignored America First more, and we're providing food and weapons to England to try to keep them out of Germany's hands, and that's what's going on in the Russian area. Mm-hmm. Now, exactly the same thing for exactly the same reasons. It appears. I don't know if you guys remember Charles Lindbergh and. Who flew the Atlantic first, but he became very conservative and very much active in America First, and said we should be on Hitler's side, not on England's side during the conflict. I could hardly believe some of these things I read, and you can read those kinds of things in other books. It's just that I pulled them together so that they kind of made sense together, worked one after the other.
Yeah.
And the other follow-on, of course, was Father Conklin. He was a Catholic priest in the 30s who was very pro-Hitler, and he had millions of followers. He had on every Friday night from Madison Square Garden, he gave a radio program. I have friends that listened to him. I never heard him, but friends said that he sounded exactly like Hitler. The things he said mimicked exactly Hitler's position on everything. And so we had some very strong things going on that was trying to drag us into the Nazi Japanese side of the war and not in the England's allied side of the war. And I didn't realize that at the time. But it was quite a shocker to me when as I got into writing this book to find out the things that I did find out that just are mimicked today, are reflected in the same kinds of things going on that went on in the 30s and 40s.
There's no denying that we're in a very uneasy time. We're in a very scary time for this country and for the future and what that holds, man. And I love the book because, as I mentioned, this book is a great informative analysis, but it also gives a lot of insight as to where we currently are, as you've mentioned, and how delicate we are in the balance of the future of this nation. And that's another rabbit hole we can jump down on a follow-up podcast here. But Art, I'm curious here, man, because I firmly believe that this is an informative analysis that is needed for everyone in this country. It is something that should be on everyone's shelf. But I want to hear it from you directly. Who would you say is your intended reader for the book, and what are you hoping that they take from it?
Well, it's definitely a book for the academies, for men and women who will someday be leaders of the military and maybe the politics in this country, need to know the mistakes and the good things that we did in the past and what the results of them were and how important it is to learn by them. The old saying, if you haven't studies history is bound to repeat it. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And my book is trying very hard to keep that from happening by people reading it.
Art, I'm curious, man, as we close out of today's interview, is there anything that we haven't yet touched up on that you really want to make sure the listening audience is aware of?
I compare the weapons of both sides when the war started, each one individually, airplanes, ships, tanks, guns, etc., and show that we were totally outclassed in every respect on all the weapons, except maybe one or two, but most of the weapons were Japan and Germany had far better weapons to begin with, and that by itself could have, caused disaster. But combined with the Japan made some very stupid mistakes. Attacking Pearl Harbor was an extremely dumb thing to do because it awakened the sleeping giant, as Admiral Yamamoto said so correctly, and put us all together in the same boat and kind of eliminated the America First people. But if they could have done their thing without attacking us, they could have then actually had control over the Pacific Ocean and over Asia. And as I say, as the title of the book, we would have been in second place. But they just, fortunately for us, did exactly the wrong thing. And then they added to that by making stupid blunders during the war on battles that I outline in the book that were going fine for the Japanese, for example, in the sea battles, and then they would turn around and go home before they took their final winning. And they did that several times, which allowed us to survive and come back. And I don't know, what we did to deserve such lousy admirals on the other side, but it sure made a difference.
People, there you have it. This book is remarkably informative. This book is going to give you insight on our history, but it's also going to give you great insight about where we potentially will be heading in the future. Pick it up. Again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. It's called The War We Almost Lost, How We Came Close to Losing World War II by Arthur A. Edwards. While you're at it, there's 3 other books that he's written as well. You're going to want to add each and every one of these books to your shelf. You can thank me later. Once you pick up copies and you begin reading, you're going to understand why I say that. Art, this has been a true pleasure. Man, as it always seems to be with you, we truly are impressed by everything that you've been able to discuss with us. We look forward to the continued discussion. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoy it.